A single spark ignites the heart. But if we turn when justice calls, the chains we forge will bind us all. When truth is silence, when lies take hold, the cost is freedom, the soul grows cold. No one stands tall while another must fall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, defending every voice, defending every right. For the moment we falter, the moment we stall, we lose our own freedom when we let others fall. You can't stand free while others kneel. When justice fades, it's freedom they steal. An innocent condemned, a crime unspoken, and with it the bond of liberty is broken. No tyrant rules without our consent. Oppression thrives where silence is spent. Stand for the weak, the silence is small, or freedom will crumble for us all. We're mavericks of freedom, guardians of the light, fighting for the truth, for what is just and right. For the rights of one are the rights of all. We rise or we fall by answering the call. Even those we may oppose deserve the rights we all uphold. For if we deny them what is fair, we build our own prison in despair. The fight's not easy, it never will be, but justice for one is the key to be free. We stand as mavericks, together we strive, defending the rights that keep freedom alive. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, upholding every truth, protecting every right. When one is oppressed, we're all in the thrall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. So take a stand, let your courage rise. Defend the truth, don't compromise. For the soul of the world, the writing's on the wall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all.
Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
So we were having a lot of technical problems here tonight, and I apologize for that. I'm going to bring in our guest here just to see where we're at, but we're already 20 minutes into the hour. Brigitte, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Mother of the convoy. I do apologize for all the technical problems. We're not firing on all of the channels tonight. And we're already 20 minutes into the hour. Now, I've got quite a bit of ground that I'd like to cover with you tonight.
Okay.
I don't know how much time you have, and you indicated that you might be running out of light.
Yeah, we're kind of in the truck, and we're headed to a family event. So we'll go as long as we can, but I can't create light in the truck. So
yeah, right. So how about this? Could we possibly reschedule for tomorrow?
I do have. Well, the family event is tomorrow, so.
Oh, okay.
But how about we do a two-parter and maybe do like Monday after election, and we can do the election results together.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
let me just okay, so where am I going to start? Because I'm all discombobulated. I've got so much information, and then all this stuff went technically haywire on me here tonight. So
That's okay.
the reason I brought Brigitte on is because I don't want to relive the convoy. That's not my intent. I don't really want to keep going back to the convoy, but the convoy keeps coming back to us. It
Oh,
keeps
yes.
and it's coming back now because of the election, which is really why I wanted to do this before people went to the polls.
Well, election and the trial, right?
And the
So both
trial.
have brought
Yes.
it to,
Yes.
yeah.
And so just so people understand, Brigitte, in case they don't remember you from being on the program long ago, you are the person who actually started the Freedom Convoy. Can you just introduce yourself again?
Yeah, I'm Brigitte Belton, and I was harassed endlessly by CBSA, and because of that, I started a convoy. So I was the trucker that was affected. I was the trucker that was going to have to stay home. I was the trucker that wasn't going to be able to afford my house or my car or, pay for groceries. The government really didn't give us much of an option. I can't hear you, Rick. There you go.
Yeah, it's the computer is going nuts. I don't know what's wrong. It lost connection with the audio. Thank you for telling me, by the way. Sometimes people don't. I just look like an idiot. A lot of people think it's Tamara Litch that was the mother of the convoy, but that's not.
No, no, that was her lawyers that basically told me I couldn't go into that first meeting because I was unvaccinated. So I couldn't go into the Marriott meeting room where the first press conference took place because I was unvaccinated. So they took that opportunity to put Tamara front and center and put her in place.
Now, that's a key point. And it's not that I want to get into all of the internal politics within the freedom movement and all of the name calling and all of that stuff. But what has come to light as I look in the rearview mirror, which, hindsight is usually clearer,
Yes.
more information has come to light. And it appears that there are some people who may have been exploiting the convoy for purposes other than just protesting mandates. And one of the people that really comes to the surface immediately and did for you immediately was Tamara Litch. And that's because of her connections to Western separatism. Can you explain why that was a concern for you?
Well, yeah, like before we even took off for Ottawa, I had made a call to Chris and I had said, she can't go. She's getting bad press and she's getting really bad press. And he screamed, literally screamed at me on the phone, said that she was coming. It wasn't a discussion. People had, she had cried because of what people had said to him, to her or about her. And so she cried to him all day on the phone. And as a woman, I'm thinking, I don't cry to a complete stranger. There are certain people I might cry to, like my barmaid, my hairdresser, my best friend, and my husband. Why would I cry to a complete stranger? A complete stranger won't know how I'm feeling. So I found it odd, but I said, well, then it's on you, Chris. So, and I guess it has been.
Right. And Chris Barber is the other trucker who has been sort of pushed out in front as sort of a face of the convoy, along with Tamara Litch, by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms and most often by lawyer Keith Wilson, who also became, in a way, a face of the convoy, an activist as much of a lawyer, I would say, during the convoy and after. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you can see it now. He's pushing separatism. I mean, so why was he really in Ottawa? Was he really there for the mandates, or was he there for the separatist part of everything? And then you have to wonder, well, is that what Tamara meant when she planned on buying a $3.2 million building to continue protesting? Was that to continue protesting for Alberta separation? Like, you just have to wonder.
Well, it goes a little bit beyond wondering, because we, over the last number of months here, like 6 months or so, we've seen more and more evidence, and we've even spoken to people on both sides of the border who have been really working to kind of break up Canada, and who were at the convoy. There was a Major General Paul Vallely who was working with Norman Traversy. And I know that there were some reports have come out suggesting that as many as 18 different groups were active at the convoy. Therefore, various reasons, there was the all-encompassing mandate issue that brought ordinary Canadians out by the thousands. That's why the vast majority of people who showed up were there with, very real concerns, legitimate reasons to protest. But the one group that came right out in front, that got all the media attention, was Freedom Corp.
Right.
Keith Wilson, the lawyer from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, by getting out in front as well, they were able to capture all of that money that was being donated to the truckers. And yet the money really never really flowed to the truckers, did it?
Well, no, and in private messaging, you have Tamara stating that she has 2 offshore bank accounts. Danny Martin, Hungry Trucker, uncovered 120 plus dollars that she moved from the where she was getting donations into a private account that couldn't receive or send transfers. It was approximately about 30% of the purse. So you have to wonder, why did she do that? And that's all part of POEC testimony. So it's not Brigitte, saying bad things about Miss Leach. It's not that. This is stuff that's in there, and I got questions that aren't being answered. And then there's a report from BJ Dichter. When he was in Ottawa, he had asked Tamara, why does Brigitte think that she's on the Freedom Convoy board? And her reply was, well, don't worry about it. She'll find out at the annual general meeting. And he was like,
Yeah.
why? What? What are you going to make her hold on for a year? So basically, their idea was to string me along for a year and just say, keep holding on, just keep holding on. Everything's going to get better. And yeah, we're going to solve the issues that you're bringing forefront. And they had no plan of ever doing that.
And, hey, this is important, because certain people got support, other people didn't. There's a lot of money that flowed in, over $20 million, I believe, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the JCCF, really, through Freedom Corp, which was set up as a separate entity by Keith Wilson and some others, but he was kind of the guy who choreographed the creation of Freedom Corporation. That's not the full name of the organization, but that's where
it's a really long name.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
This was what was used to administer the maintenance and distribution, although it didn't really happen, of the money. And ultimately, he controlled the funds through Freedom Corp and this entity, right?
Well, if he controlled Tamara and Chris, he controlled the funds, right?
Right.
So because Tamara and Chris's name was eventually on the fundraising platform, which when I talked to Chris, and even in the video that we all did together, Chris said, well, I don't know anything about fundraising, so no, I don't want my name on that. And then his name just magically appears, and I'm like, what the heck? And then, Keith Wilson's also received donations from a Georgia businessman to Freedom Corp. So is he laundering money through his legal practice? I don't know. I mean, this is a question.
And that's a strong word, and I don't want to leave anything here in legal jeopardy.
No, and neither do I. That's why I'm saying
so,
it's a question. What happened? Like, why is it going through Keith Wilson? Because it is going through Keith Wilson, but how is another thing.
Now, so we've got this lawyer through the JCCF, which is an advocacy group that has done a lot of sort of pro bono work for certain political causes. So it's a political legal organization, and it's
Pretty much.
also tied in. They've done work for a lot of oil companies, gas and oil companies. They're from Western Canada, Alberta centric, right? So you've got all this history there. You have Tamara Litch, who was with the Wexit Party, then the Maverick Party, separatist organizations. She's already on the government's radar long before this convoy ever started. We also had this other convoy that was created in 2019. The Yellow Vest Convoy is what it started as. Interestingly, Tamara Litch was part of the Yellow Vest movement before that convoy even started. And I don't know if you're aware, but that organization also raised alarm bells with the federal government because there were social media posts threatening to assassinate the prime minister, which she
Right, and that's why
did.
she changed the name to United We Roll or
Right.
whatever. And, and that fundraiser was also with Glenn Carrot, who she has said, Chris said on the 9th of January that Glenn Carrot contacted him because we were getting a lot of people were interested in the end the mandates, right?
Yeah.
And then Glenn Carrot hooks up Tamara and Chris, according to her in her book. And then you have when you go and research Glenn Carrot, there was someone going to do an RCMP investigation into the fundraising practices of that convoy. There was approximately a $40,000, request for a refund because of the practices of that. So was she looking to repeat Glenn Carrot's issues for herself? I don't know. Like,
Well, we see
again,
that
these are questions. These are things I have
20,
as questions.
it's clear, and I've heard statements like this of this from others who were involved in the first convoy, who also became involved in the second convoy. That in many respects, the 2019 United We Roll protest, which was a convoy just like what we saw, just on a smaller scale, but it was morphed. It kind of went from this yellow vest protest into the United We Roll they rebranded it, and then it became an oil and gas protest. Talking about pipelines, all the issues that are front and center right now, and tying into the 51st state rhetoric and Alberta separatism, exactly the same rhetoric. 2019 overlaid onto that protest, and that then during the Freedom Convoy, what does JCCF do? They come along, and I'm just trying to move things along here as quickly as I can because we're short on time. But what happens here? You get the JCCF involved, an advocacy legal organization that is tied into the oil and gas industry, has separatist ties, and they take separatists and put them right out in front to face up the PR end of the convoy while scooping up all this money. Now, you talk about foreign interference in our elections, right? So here's
Right.
the reason I really wanted to bring you on tonight before people cast their ballots, because when the hacking of the Give Send Go was made public, when that list of donors came out, which I don't advocate for, I don't agree with it, but it was made public. Do you recall what the percentage was of U.S. funds that went into that fund? I can tell you if I could save some time.
Offhand, I can't. So
56%. 56% U.S. funding. Now, Donald Trump's fingerprints are all over this convoy. MAGA. They absolutely are. I had General Vallely on the program talking about what he was doing with Norman Traversy. He's giving direction to some of these convoy activists who call themselves organizers from one of the other groups from a base in Montana, while he's providing intelligence and talking directly to Donald Trump, who's not in office, but is running sort of a shadow government, pseudo government thing in the background, preparing to run again for the next election, consulting with military experts, including Mr. Vallely. We see all this US funding coming up to Canada. And the government, of course, you know, they're pretty sensitive about the way they deal with these international incidents and foreign influence. And people are wondering why we're not naming names, because maybe if you name names from people who are compromised politically, that are tied into a government that's very, very close to you, you might have an international incident on your hands. So we don't know why they aren't naming names. Everybody assumes that it's China, but we know from statements from Carney and some of the other politicians that it's not just China that is of great concern with regard to foreign interference and manipulation, both witting and unwitting, of our members of parliament. And as I'm sitting here tonight, Brigitte, the one government that seems to have the most influence over our election, is influencing our election in unprecedented ways tonight, is the United States government. Fair
Well, and
statement?
Tamara Leach in her own book says that Alex, and the only Alex I could find, she gives just enough information to out people. So Alex is the only Toronto developer to Donald Trump, and he's a Russian man, which she states, and he offered her a flight anywhere she'd like to go. So that's a secondhand man to Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
Then you have Dr. Paul Alexander, again, somebody else who was close to Donald Trump. Now, if you look at Dr. Paul Alexander, he was part of TBOF.
Yeah.
And who was at the president of that? Brian Packford. And then you have Brian Packford directly working with Keith Wilson. I don't know how many crayon lines I can draw to start figuring stuff out.
All these figures tie back in one way or another back to the Trump campaign and now the Trump presidency.
And you know, it breaks my heart because I've been a Trump supporter for a very, very long time. I've watched him. I've read his books. He's a smart man. And his practices that he, you know, shared actually do work, and they do help the little guy like me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it breaks my heart to think that he may have had some involvement, or some of his people may have had involvement. And if you look at Rebel News, they are very much involved in Convoy. And Ezra was friends with was it Valik something? He attended his rally in Iowa, and he was personally invited. So now you've got Ezra Levant connected to all this, and he's a Wester as well. So
and yeah, he keeps platforming all the separatists. He keeps, you know, talking about why it would be a good thing. You know, basically advocating for it. He's supporting it. Keith Wilson on his, I had all these clips and everything tonight, but we're going to forego a lot of this stuff because we don't have much time. But Keith Wilson tonight, if you go to his Twitter page, this lawyer, all of his posts, all the way down, it's all pro-separatist, repost. And then you see all these streamers who also are either at the convoy or have been advocating other
Mark
aspects
Friesen or Marty Goes North or something like that.
Even Viva Fry tonight, you know, post from him saying that he thinks that Alberta is going to separate. And you have all these other new podcasters who are strangely,
Levine,
Jason Levine, Jasmine Lane, Clyde Do Something, Moose on the Loose. I'm not saying any of these people are doing anything illegal, but they're all echoing a very similar, in fact, almost identical narrative messaging. They all have very similar kinds of looks and branding, and I know that many of them are getting, and I've shown who it is. They're getting guidance and assistance on their branding and their.
But who did that? That was Keith Wilson did that after Convoy. He had a group put together for stakeholders, right, as he called it.
Yeah.
And he did influential media and supporters, and to basically work as a group to destroy other protesters and organizers who didn't support the Tamara Leach, Chris Barber narrative. So
Right.
they're repeating the same thing. That's all they're doing, but for a different cause.
Yes.
And it worked effectively for Convoy.
Yeah. And that's part of the key too. It's like those people that support their narrative, their political agenda, they get the support. If you're part of the separatist, like, and I'm just saying, all you have to do is just take a look at the names and then look at what they're advocating for or supporting right now. If it's all the separatists are getting the legal representation from JCCF, but you are not part of the separatist movement. You're not echoing their political narrative, so you didn't get any help. And there's a whole bunch of freedom fighters and truckers who got no support at all from the JCCF, even though people were donating, thinking that they were donating to the truckers. But
Right.
it seems like it's only people with a certain political point of view that are getting the legal support as they navigate through the courts.
Or people they can manipulate to follow their narrative and to regurgitate it. So, you know, you've got other political entities as well, like the Christian Heritage Fund that one of the organizers were a part of. You have they were also a mayor, like, you know, and they're just starting to regurgitate. You could see it slowly coming out that they would go against anyone that was not supporting the narrative. And that's sad because we did go as a team and we did go together to apparently end mandates, but that was not the narrative for some. They had a bigger prize that the rest of us were unaware of and did not share.
It certainly seems like that is the case. And a lot of people went there for a lot of different reasons, but this was the most prominent group. And when you say manipulation, it looks like a lot of people were manipulated, perhaps because, you know, there's another gentleman who appeared on the Rudy Bruce broadcast that I took note of. His name is Peter Turner. He's a labor consultant who assists labor groups, protest groups with protests and strikes to make sure that they get connected to the people they need to connect to make sure they don't go to jail when they have a protest, so that they get a constructive, productive outcome when they engage in these kinds of activities. And he offered his services straight up to Tamara Litch and the other organizers in that group, no charge. And
they turned him down.
I wish
he was up in arm prior. I wish I would have met him, and I wish we would have connected, because I definitely would have taken a lobbyist with me, because we were going to Ottawa and we needed to speak to the MPs. Now, if you listen to Dr. Laura Braden, she tells you flat out that when it came push to shove, we had the MPs all sorted out. They had gotten us a meeting. Chris, Tamara, and the lawyers go, we don't want that meeting. Yeah, that's what we went for.
Right. Now, here's the clip I'm going to run from Peter Turner from Rudy's broadcast. I will run this because this is sort of the key to the whole thing. And now, right here, here's what Peter Turner had to say on that broadcast. And this is really what opened my eyes.
Now, when they hit Ottawa, you know,
hang on, let me get this.
Slow that down.
Yes, here we go.
There was no organization. I mean, nobody. See, when I do my shutdowns, like with CN, CP, I mean, all these places I've shut down, it's my last resort. I tried to talk to everybody, and my thing is to keep the politicians out of it, because they just do nothing but screw it up. Fortunately, this is where you needed the politicians to hear. And I was, you know, I know a lot of them. I have access to them. And we could have resolved this whole issue. Okay. But I honestly believe that time they were coming here to pick a fight and did not want to solve anything.
So what happened?
And he went beyond that, and he also says that he warned them if they do it the way they're doing it, they're going to jail. So he
Right.
advised them, and they didn't seem to care.
Well, I mean, think about it. You have Chris Barber. The day he was arrested, it was the only day he had breakfast with all the other male organizers. It's the only day he didn't have a wad of cash in separate envelopes in his sleeve. And it's the only day they all walked the street together. Why? How does that just happen? He also moved his truck on the 6th or 7th of February prior to this all coming down. We knew, we were told it's going to get bad. And I asked the question, how bad and what are you willing to do? Right. But I would have worked ad nauseum with Mr. Turner to get this solved. And when Tom Marazzo first came into the room, he said, the way you are is perfect. If you don't move trucks, no, they can't come after you in a mass. So what does Chris, Tamara, Tom, and Wilson do after refusing the MPP meeting? They go and they move all the trucks into one place so they can be kettled and arrested. They knew what they were doing.
And they went beyond that because I went back and I found the clip. Keith Wilson not only kept advising people as they were handing out the leaflets, telling people that it was time to go. The police chief made public statements through news conferences saying, you have to go or you're going to be arrested. The prime minister said the same thing. People were warned repeatedly for, I don't know, about 17 to 24 hours, somewhere in that range. And here's Keith Wilson. Here's a report from CH Television out of Hamilton.
It happened many times.
Wilson and convoy organizer Chris Barber made a TikTok video to encourage more people to join the protest in Ottawa, openly defying the order to leave the area.
It looks like the federal government is going to tell the police to go and use violence against lawful protesters. And one way to stop that from happening is Canadians who are concerned about their rights and government overreach to come to Ottawa as soon as you can get here and stand with the truckers.
Wilson said today that when he made the video, he never thought anyone would get hurt when...
Well, how the hell do you reconcile those two statements? You know they're going to use violence, but you didn't think anybody would get hurt. So he sits there and encourages more people to show up. Now, what has Peter Turner said and what has Rudy Bruce said? They say that the reason they did it is because they wanted a photo op. They wanted the pictures of the protesters being beaten. Why would they do that, Brigitte?
To get more money, to raise money, to get money that they could move wherever. I mean, we have lots of people raising money. You've got Ezra Levant that raised money for truckers. And and I'm a bull in a china shop, so I'm not going to say I'm not. When I keep questioning where the trucker money went to and what truckers got it, I got blocked on X because he won't answer the question. So where did that money go? Nobody knows. There is no accountability. Where did the money go for the JCCF that went to truckers? It was a trucker fund. You could do the scroll down bar. It goes to the truckers. Well, Tom Marazzo said it went to Randy Hillier and Danny Bulford and him, and none of those people are truckers. So were you raising money for truckers or were you raising money for your political pawns? You have to start asking these questions, and I'm the girl to do it because I don't let up on any of them. And they may have thought I was just a nice old lady, which I absolutely can be, but if you start with your rhetoric with me, like Chris has done repeatedly, then you get what you put out. So I'm definitely not a doormat, and I don't get walked over easy. So, these people need to stand up and show accountability and show the accounts. What truckers got the money?
And just a couple of other points related to all of this. This came out within the past week, which is another reason all of this came back on my radar. Interesting that it's happening during this election cycle. And the and it's the weirdest thing I think I've ever seen with regard to law in Canada. Chris Barber asks court to stay proceedings against him. Why? Because if you read this news release on the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom's website, this news release says that he received erroneous legal advice. So this is, I think,
Right.
the first time in my experience that maybe it's the first time in Canadian history that a legal organization appears to be using incompetence as a legal defense. In other words, by giving crappy legal advice, they're saying that they shouldn't convict their client, I guess.
Well, and the funny thing is, Chris was warned before, so I'm not sure how he's going to use this to his defense. He was warned. I warned him personally, that there was something wrong and that he needed to separate from those people. And he basically told me I needed to separate from my lawyer. So I was like, well, you know what? She's the only one that helped me. So, well, you all stabbed me in the back. I mean, what do you want me to do? So I have a great lawyer now. His name is Jim Carhalios, and he doesn't tell me to do bad things. He doesn't tell me to bring protesters to Ottawa. He doesn't tell me, to say silly things. He's like, you need to be careful. You need to be careful, and you shouldn't do this. And maybe you should wait for this, or maybe we should consult a little bit longer. And he's never called me stupid like Keith Wilson has when he didn't get his own way. And I was referring to something that I did have some knowledge on that I had been, involved with in the past. And in order to put me in line against the other convoy organizers, he decided to call me stupid. And I was like, you're a jackass. I mean, just like at that point, I was like, yeah, I hold no respect for him if he's willing to try and use that kind of division between the organizers. He's the one that's caused the division in the organization. He's the one that caused the division of the movement, and he's the one that has literally gone after all of us. So for whatever reason, and I apologize, but there's stuff going on in the
that's
car,
okay, no
so.
problem. This is reality television. So and there's another layer to the use of the video that was shot as the protesters were being the peaceful protesters and the people they're protesting for legitimate reasons were being beaten in the streets. And that's because I guess that footage is going to be recycled again for use in a couple of documentaries, which they are also raising funds for. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, the only thing I haven't seen yet, and I'm sure it's out there, is to raise money for Chris Barber's truck. I mean, and even that is funny because Chris Barber has 4 trucks, says so right on his safe web for the industry. And and he's crying that he's going to lose a truck and he's gonna lose his livelihood. Yeah, when you have 4 trucks and you lose one, you still have 3 trucks, so you're not losing your livelihood. I'll give him the same advice as he gave me when I was worried about losing the truck Kevin has. Don't worry about it. They'll come for it in 3 months.
And, on the surface, what we saw was bouncy castles, people playing street hockey, all of those peaceful things, which is all very true. But, more than
Yes.
one thing can be true at the same time. And as I look back, I see the existential threat to the government. I see the existential threat to Canada, our country. It was sitting right there, front and center, with the separatists, which the government
Right.
itself sees as an existential threat to the country. Now, I would say, in most countries, if you have people who want to break the country up, if you have separatists, if you have foreign interference that appears to be there through intelligence, or you suspect that, then yes, your radar goes up. And then I have to wonder how. I'm not wondering. I know that the government's response is predicated, at least in part, because of the knowledge that you have these people who are already on their radar, who are already known separatists. And if they're putting separatists out front to represent the convoy, while over here telling us that it's because of the mandates, the government can see through that because they have CSIS. They have the experience. The average person sitting here in Ontario, like me, I'm not paying attention to what the heck's going on with, Alberta politics to the point where I know the inner politics of Wexit and Maverick Party and all the
Right,
players,
which
but
I
I'm
didn't
learning
know
now.
either.
Right.
I mean, which I didn't know either. And I believe these people were on the same page. We were going for mandates. People
Right.
were hurting.
Yep.
Like people were, people that couldn't wear a mask were literally being thrown on the ground, and they had letters, but it didn't matter. The government had separated everybody so much that everybody was so afraid. And people were losing their jobs, and they were losing every last dollar they had. People were going to become homeless.
Yes.
People had no jobs, and the government, because you weren't vaccinated, wasn't going to give you CERB or welfare or anything else. So these people really needed our help, and that's what we should have been going for, and that's what I went for. That was the premise I went on, because I was in the exact same position as those people. Unfortunately, you look at the Chris Barber, and he's got land, and he's got antiques, and he's not hurting.
Mm-hmm.
The vaccine mandate wouldn't have hurt him. And you look at Tamara, she owed the bank money when she got into this, but now she's got 100.
No, we froze up there. Oh, I lost Brigitte. Hopefully she comes back on me in a moment. We just lost her link. I'll tell you, we'll take a very, very short break and we'll re-engage with her on the other side.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
All right, babe. I think I just
Okay, we're back.
Anyway,
we're back. You got me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? No, we lost her again. Well, hopefully she comes back. It was just getting interesting. We were just getting into the good stuff. All right, let's bring her back again. There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can't barely hear you.
You can barely hear me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if we got clicked off.
Everything's going wrong technically tonight. Usually it's pretty smooth, but not so much.
Yeah, I was like, what happened? Audio settings. I'm good.
We're good. I can hear you if you just want to frame up your shot there. And
hang on a second. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Everything's fine on our end now then. Okay, so
Yeah, you're not coming in on my headset though. I don't know what happened.
Well, it's all right. You sound fine on my end. If you can hear me, then we can just continue.
Okay.
All right. So it's not that, and they've tried to discredit you and many others because you really haven't fit their narrative. Is that a pretty fair assessment?
That's correct. And they even tried to take Chad's job. Chad was, he has 12 kids. I feel for the man. I mean, for a year, he was fighting to get his license and accreditation back. I mean, that's horrible. Who does that? That was Tamara Leach and Keith Wilson.
Yeah, but I've heard many people say Brigitte just wants the attention. She just wants to be known as the one who is the creator of the convoy and get all the credit for it. Or other people will say she's just jealous because she's not getting the money. Well, you certainly didn't get the money, and you didn't.
No, I didn't.
But a lot of people know of what you did. Well, how do you respond to those accusations?
I wanted the truth, and I wanted the truth from the beginning. And I mean, if you listen to Tamara Leach, her book, she says, I give Brigitte credit. And then she goes to Germany and says, the convoy started on the 14th, which means there's no Brigitte, there's no Chris, there's no, there's no BJ, there's no nobody but her. So, I mean, you have to wonder, what her game is there. I mean, if she it looks like she's trying to be the one and only that did everything. And, honestly, I can tell you on a day-to-day basis, I barely saw her. So I don't know what she did other than taking photos on the street. I saw her once meet with the lawyers to try and get stuff worked out with the bank account. And then she was gone. And that was after we found out she hadn't responded to the bank in 7 days. So it's like, you know what? I don't care about the credit. Honestly, I care about the truth. And to have something written in history that is absolutely 100% false, that burns me. Does that mean everything we've learned in her history is absolutely not correct? Why would somebody push that false narrative so hard that the history books are going to be written falsely? That's incorrect. We need to know the truth about what happened, good or bad. We need to know the truth.
And there's another layer of truth that people are just not really picking up on. That is that while some people did see this, including Jagmeet Singh and others who have security clearance and were privy to the actual intelligence to know what was kind of going on at a level that the average person is not. The other layer of truth is that while we did not get a coup of our government or an overthrow of our government, what we did see was an internal conflict that erupted within the Conservative Party and a change in leadership. You could say it was sort of like an internal semi-democratic coup within the Conservative Party, because if you recall, as a result of the convoy, Aaron O'Toole actually did meet with a couple of the convoy organizers. Strangely, it was Conservatives who did actually meet. People may be not aware of this, but there were meetings that took place between some Conservative members of Parliament and convoy organizers. Aaron O'Toole kept flip-flopping on his support, but one person didn't. That person was Pierre Poilievre. As a result of this, I believe it was, I just made a note here, 35 members of Parliament, Conservatives, issued a letter challenging O'Toole's leadership. That was 1/3 of the caucus. It erupted and eventually into a virtual vote. There were also letter writing campaigns from former members of Parliament who were Conservatives. And on February 2nd, O'Toole, because of the controversy within the Conservatives, he was defeated as leader and was forced to step down by a vote of 73 out of 118 Conservative MPs, paving the way.
Right. And what you didn't touch on was the fact that the Conservative Party called me personally prior to leaving. And I put up a TikTok about it. It is there down. You got to scroll down, way down to find it. But I put up the fact that they had called me, 2 men from the Conservative office, and they wanted to talk to me about what I thought about O'Toole. And, I basically told them he's a red coat with blue suede shoes. Right. I can bring him a blue coat. And, basically they knew as a Conservative who, lifetime Conservative, I was now not voting Conservative because of that man. So, because of his waffling. So they basically, thanked me for my time. We had talked for about 45 minutes. After that, I got a call from provincial Conservatives. And that man, I believe he said he was from Peter MacKay's office.
Yeah.
And he asked me again the same question. Said, what do I want? Mm-hmm. Like, I said, I want our freedoms back. I want to go back to work. I want our freedoms. And he goes, is there anybody else I can talk to? And I said, no, I'm it. And he goes, okay, thanks. And he hung up. And I was just like, wow.
So if you go back, as I say, hindsight is always clearer. You have in Alberta itself, the Conservatives were sort of in disarray, but this Unite the Right sort of movement erupted. And then you had the separatists through organizations like Alberta Prosperity Project, Take Back Alberta. I think they call it Alberta 51. These separatist organizations run by people like David Parker with Take Back Alberta, Peter Downing, who's the guy who's been paying to put up all those billboards saying Alberta should join the United States, right? He's the guy behind that. He's got a long history of separatism. Danielle Smith, the premier out in Alberta, was part of the Wild Rose Party, separatist party. Then she crosses the floor, joins the United Conservative Party, becomes the premier. You also have all of these separatist groups which have been they got involved with the party and affected their platform, essentially inserting themselves not as separatist parties. They joined with the Conservative Party, and now they basically control it because they've got their person, their leader. They installed Danielle Smith as the leader of the UCP. Now they get her elected, and now they've got Alberta. Now, as the convoy rolls out and you go through the whole process of this protest, you didn't get an overthrow of the government, but what you did get is you had key players from the federal Conservative Party who are all linked back. If you go look at them, there's a heavy representation from Alberta MPs and the separatist movement.
Well, Andrew Scheer met with Chris Barber personally, right?
Right. And Poilievre from Alberta. All of his roots go back to Alberta. Oil and gas, big influence on Mr. Poilievre. So what ends up happening? The convoy comes, they don't take over the government, but now they do have their guy installed as the leader of the federal Conservatives. Now, I've always been pretty much a conservative. I know that you the other day even said people should vote Conservative. So this is not an intended hit job on Pierre Poilievre or the Conservatives, but people need to be aware of what is really going on. So what we have now is a hand-picked leader from Western Canada, Alberta, who has pro-separatist sympathies. In the Prime Minister's office, if he's elected, certainly leader of the official opposition right now. We have a pro-separatist premier with a history of it. I'm not just making this up or speculating. This is fact, right? And you have all of these pro-separatist live streamers, podcasters who strangely, last night I saw one of them had enough money, Brigitte, to tell somebody that they were going to buy her a car. A car. I am not joking. Outside of Pierre Poilievre rally, this blew my mind. Mr. Sunshine Baby said to a lady that has been on our show calling in, she was complaining to him about how the economy was so bad that she can't afford to buy even a used car. And he said, you go over there and see this guy. We're going to get you a car. Where the hell do these people get this kind of money? I am not joking. It was live streamed last night. Somebody sent it to me. I was like,
I don't know.
How did that happen?
And I think that's ridiculous. That's buying votes. You shouldn't be allowed.
It would seem so. Now, I don't know if any laws were broken there, but I've never seen that happen in Canadian politics before, which is very American style politics when you have Elon Musk handing out $1 million checks and spending $270 million to get into the White House and, all this, payola going on. This is unprecedented. So it's just making you're connecting the dots here, right? This is crazy.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to this convoy.
I don't like the American style politics in Canada.
No.
I absolutely don't. I wish we would get back to the actual issues and dealing with the issues. And we have not done that since 2015. It has been a crapshoot listening to these guys. Not that they really did ever talk hugely about the stuff that was affecting us as citizens, but it was far better before 2015.
Yeah.
And they actually talked about the issues. They didn't go, oh yeah, I know you're hurting and that you have to live in this shanty shack, but we're going to build you war style homes. It's like, are you people so out of touch? You have no idea what it's like to be a regular citizen by the rules you make us live by. And the answer to that is quite out there by the way they acted during COVID. We had to be locked down while they used citizen-run citizen paid facilities for their own hockey games
Yeah.
while they went on their own vacations, and they didn't have to follow the same rules we did.
Yeah. So where does that leave everything? It's like that this, you guys are still out there in limbo. You don't have any, legal representation from the JCCF, and we see they're going to make some documentaries. Now this whole 51st state Alberta separatism thing is boiling over. We now see the premier of Quebec saying that Canada is just an artificial state. And it seems to me that Alberta and Quebec, as much as they're at each other's throats all the time, they have a common interest, which is to break up the country. And we're hearing the same rhetoric out of both, which makes me wonder what the hell's going on in Quebec too.
Well, you have to wonder if Quebec and the Western separatists have a link, because
yes.
Quebec has done this forever. Ever since I was a child, I was in my teens. The last time I remember Quebec complaining and wanting to be a separate country. And then you look at Alberta wanting to do the same thing, and the people are all about it. And it's like, you have no idea. It costs $20,000 to have a baby. And in Canada, it costs you nothing, right? So other than our high taxes, right? But when you have that baby, you pay nothing to deliver.
Yep.
You have a heart, you need a heart transplant. It costs you nothing.
Nothing.
But the biggest thing in the US is medical bankruptcy. So these people want to go join a country that won't even provide diabetic medication to anyone.
Yeah.
Why? Like, and you call yourself patriots. No, you're not patriots of Canada. Who are you patriots of? Oil and gas?
Right.
And even when that happens, do you think they're going to keep Alberta workers working? Or do you think they're going to bring in workers from oil rigs that have been unemployed for quite some time, and they're just going to bring them up to Alberta?
Yeah.
I don't think Alberta's going to get everything it wants.
No,
I think
not
it's
at
going
all.
to be a complete disappointment for the Alberta people. And I feel sorry for them because they've been fed rhetoric that they think is going to work for them.
Yep.
And it's odd that it's the same lawyer that fed Chris rhetoric, and now he's fighting back. And honestly, kudos to Chris to some degree for saying my lawyer made me do it, because I've been telling him that for over 2 years, and I asked him to stand up then, and now he's standing up when he finally realizes how much was on the line.
Sort of, although it's odd
that's what it took. That's what it took.
Yeah, but it's strange that the media release is coming from the JCCF, which is the organization
that is strange.
Wilson comes from. So I'm not so sure that there will be any real accountability there. It's
and he's only known as the co-defendant to the democracy funds. So I mean, he doesn't even have a name for them.
And
so
after Keith Wilson encouraged more protesters to come, more Canadians to come, even though he knew what was coming, because he knew the cops were going to get violent, which he says right in the clip. He says, we know they're going to get violent, even after he encouraged more people to come. Right. And as they were getting beaten in the streets, where was he?
Oh, he was gone.
Yeah, back to Alberta.
He was gone before that all happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he let those people take a beating in the street, and he hightailed it out of town. And no charges ever laid against Keith Wilson for anything, even though he too was front and center and was directing people, telling people what to do. Now, I'm not saying he was doing anything illegal, but certainly in his position, he was as active as anyone. And
common sense would tell you, if Chris Barber followed out the instructions of Keith Wilson, then Keith Wilson should be implicated and charged, since he was directing it. That's just common sense.
Certainly involved, but I guess being a lawyer gets you some sort of immunity, or maybe just there was an oversight there, because people are just thinking, well, he's just the lawyer.
Problem.
Right, there's the problem. Part of the problem right there, I think. Yeah. That's just my opinion. And I'm not saying that Keith Wilson has done anything illegal, but I'm wondering about the ethics and the morals.
A lot of us are. And I give it to, I hands up to Chad, who's actually taking that fight on. The rest of us couldn't afford or the time and the effort and the money to go after Wilson, and Chad is. So kudos to him, because he's had enough. And I mean, he's the one that's taken a lot. He lost his career for over a year at the word of Tamara and Keith Wilson. I mean, I think that's really dirty to take somebody's career from them.
And so again, as you look back in the rearview mirror, you begin to understand a little bit better why the government did what it did, the way that it did it. Not that I agree with the approach, because I still I think Trudeau took the bait in many respects, but that's also an error in judgment on his part, and you shouldn't have done that to the people in the streets. But
well, here's the other thing, Rick. I would have happily talked to them.
Yep.
I did try and reach out, and I tried to reach out through a childhood friend that is an MP, and I tried to reach out to the city for a former employer that I had that was on city council. So they can't say they didn't have anybody try and reach out to them to solve the issue.
That's true.
I did.
But if you have people who are a known threat, not only to you personally, because potentially personally, because of past threats made against you as the prime minister, and not only that, but if you know that you have a group of people out there that some of them at the core of the whole thing want to tear the country apart, I can understand why you don't negotiate.
People there, Rick.
Oh, there were. I'm not saying otherwise. Not at all. I'm not trying to discredit any of that. But what I am saying is, if you didn't have these people with these other motives that were hidden from the other protesters, right? Then the government, then those people might not have been punished by the government, because you know what it is? Same thing here with our free speech issue, right? Here on this channel. I try to give free speech to everybody, but if you have one person run in and start to abuse the free speech and scream at the top of their lungs and shout fire, then everybody suffers, because we all have to leave the room. We'll have to, we're all evacuated. It's like, so the point is, nobody understood why this was going on, because I also see this U.S. influence. You have to be very careful about what you accuse the United States and you see, I don't even think it was the United States. All the evidence just points back to MAGA and the Trump administration. That's where all the evidence really leads. Not to the at that Trump wasn't in office at the time, but it all goes back to Trump. And so what do you do? Are you going to, as a government, say, we think that there's this influence from the United States on this big protest? People wouldn't understand. They would just go, oh, come on, as they always do, right? But we're seeing that it really was true. There was influence there. Not only that,
what they do. Yeah.
But not only that, James Bowder, who was one of the reasons that the government became concerned because of his memorandum of understanding, his MOU, which they say was a document calling for the overthrow of the government or whatever. Not that it ever really rose to that level, I don't think. But anyway, we both know where he is right now, right? Where is he?
In Texas.
Yeah, seeking asylum. I had a conversation with him. I wasn't going to mention this because I wasn't going to go public with it, but because it is out there in the public realm right now, I'll tell you, I had a conversation with him, Brigitte, and do you know what he told me? He told me that they're going to make a documentary about him. And do you know who he's working with on that, or who has approached him to make that? RFK Jr. and Kyle Kemper.
See,
both of whom
so when you look at all the organizers that have any media, any attention right now, publicly right now, they are all linked somehow to someone in the elite class, within the political class.
Yeah.
And the rest of us who don't, we're not seen. So you have to, at that point, come to the realization that those people were artificially inflated and inserted to be your heroes.
Do you know what a color revolution is? You ever hear that phrase?
You know what? You've talked to me about that before. And you know what? I had no idea. So I'm going to let you take the lead because I cannot even explain it as close to you can.
A color revolution is a protest generally, which is very large and very disruptive to government. These things are fueled by funding, dark money that comes in from intelligence services like the CIA, or the Russians do it through the FSB, and they find ways to put money into anti-government organizations. They don't really care which side it's on, but if they're trying to overthrow a government or destabilize a country, they'll just support covertly organizations that are anti-government, even criminal organizations like bikers, drug cartels, you name it. They'll put money into it in order to just destabilize the government. The first thing I thought when I saw the convoy rolling was, this looks just like a color revolution. But of course, we don't have those things in Canada, I thought. So this couldn't possibly be it. And you see, a color revolution, what they do is they use the people as pawns, as unwitting participants in their nefarious plans, because they bring in people, they encourage people through social media posts, promoting, be here for this protest at this time. And then they promote the same thing to the people on the other side, go to this protest at this time. And then they bring the two groups together so they fight. And so as I sat there and watched this convoy roll out, I thought, how the hell did they do this? This is the biggest protest in Canadian history. I thought, okay, well, it's the pandemic. I get it. People are upset. But no, as I sit back and look at it, no, it was helped along. It was a snowball rolling down the hill, just like the United We Roll convoy, but it got really, 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 really big fast. Not only did it get big fast, all this money started to flow in. And how the hell did that happen? Over $20 million over the course of just a number of days, and first one frozen, and then they set up another one, and they duplicated again. I don't think that's ever happened in Canadian history before. How does that happen? Well, if you go and you look at the way color revolutions are staged in other countries through history, it happens just like that. Now, I can't say for sure where all that money came from, but I think our government probably does through CSIS and the RCMP. They probably have a pretty good idea. And if it's embarrassing to a government that poses a true existential threat to your country because they're right on your doorstep, you might not want to say too much about it publicly. You might want to kind of just keep it to yourself, not say too much, and maybe not name names. Because if you do, they might just drive a tank up here because it's so damn embarrassing to them and say, you know what? You got a lot of Chinese people up there in Kanakistan. We're going to have to liberate you. So then you get people like Tucker Carlson coming up here saying, you know, Prime Minister, I'm calling and leaving a message on your answering machine. I'm coming to Canada to liberate you while I visit Danielle Smith and all your freedom fighters out there in Alberta. So I phoned the Prime Minister's office right after Tucker Carlson that day. And you know what I said? I said, hi, this is Rick Walker from Maverick News. I understand Tucker Carlson just called and left a message for the Prime Minister. My question is, are you going to arrest him when he gets to the border? I did do that on the program live.
Well, and then you have Christiane Anderson, which is part of the AFD, and who supports that? Elon Musk. Yes. So there's your crayons. You keep drawing those lines right back to the White House at this point.
Sure do. And the AFD is part of a global political movement, which is really the rise of the right all around the world. Conservatism, but it's not conservatism. It's actually neo-populism. That's what it is. Right. And that's what MAGA is. That's what the AFD is. That is kind of what the PPC is. That's why you're seeing the PPC promoted on InfoWars, Viva Frei, all the conservative streams in the US. Polyev won't do it for him. Polyev ain't going to cut it because he's just not conservative enough, if you get my drift. Okay. So he's just a means to an end in my view, but there you go, Bridget.
But hey, Rick, I have to get going.
Yes.
If we want to see if I can jump out and jump back in to fix my audio, we might be able to keep me just on voice instead of on video and voice. If that works for you, if we want to give that a try.
Yeah, we can continue a little bit longer. I mean, we've kind of covered most of the ground I needed to cover tonight. I hope that was clear to people. I'll tell you, why don't we wrap up, give you a final thought, and then if we need to, we can continue this another night to give people more information and more details. We can assess that after.
Great. And I apologize, I can't stick around for questions, guys. I know you guys love your questions. So I apologize in advance, but we're on our way to a family event. So
no problem at all. Brigitte Belton, mother of the convoy, and I would say mother of truth. Thank you for joining us on the program tonight. I really appreciate it. Extremely valuable.
Thank you so much, Rick. Peace out. I love you to death, and we will do that coffee very soon.
You betcha, because you're just up the highway from me.
Right?
All right, guys, I'll be back in just a minute. Don't go away. More to come.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, I am back. And yeah, it's been kind of a crazy night here, ladies and gents, because of all the technical problems. So you know what we're going to do, because everything is kind of twisted and crazy. I am going to go to the phones. But before we do that, we'll take another quick break while I get things set up for that. We'll come back on the other side and you can join the conversation. And I'll see you in a moment.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, ladies and gents, here's the number to call. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. First caller of the night. And who else would it be but our own John Rimby from Alberta? Be gentle,
the minion
Sir
is
John.
calling in again, sir.
How are you tonight, John?
Good, good. What? I just couldn't resist calling in from possibly the 51st state.
Wish it was.
What an interview, Rickster. That's just off the charts. I see some nasty comments in the Rumble.
Of course,
chat about
because
that lady,
people
but
are just in complete denial. How could that possibly be?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Donald Trump. He wouldn't do something like that. Yeah, he would. He is. He wants Greenland. He wants Panama. He wants Canada. He wants Gaza. And it don't stop. And it is nuts. It's crazy. And it's all freaking true. Every word that I said tonight is freaking true, except for those things which have yet to be proven in a court of law for legal reasons. I'm saying that, but you can assess for yourself and believe what you want. But reality is reality, and we're getting people closer to the actual truth. That is where it's at, man. And poor Brigitte, John, she's really taking it on the chin through all of this, because the power hitters politically have really gone to town on her and a bunch of other people who are directly involved in the convoy, and they've been left high and dry. There's a whole bunch of people that have been left behind, no support. People were donating that money to support those true protesters, and I would say the true patriots, not the fake patriots, the fake freedom fighters, the people who were there for other reasons. No, the true patriots are the ones who got left behind. People like Brigitte, the mother of the convoy.
wow. Well, I mean, we appreciate you so much in Alberta. Like you keep peeling layers of the onion back.
Yeah.
And I really admire your honesty, your integrity. You're kind of the Peter Colombo. You're the Colombo, the Peter Falk of Canada, my friend. If people remember Peter Falk, Colombo, you keep peeling little layers of the onion back, and what you're uncovering is a big pile of poo-poo, my friend.
Is, John.
I'm so disheartened as a World War I veteran that I got involved. Excuse me, my voice. I got involved with the convoy. I think like 98% of other Canadians because of the mandates, the lockdown, and I think we've been fed a big pile of horse manure.
Yeah, see, and they had all the pieces in place to do what they've done, in my view, because you have the legal team, you have the political team, you have the PR team with all your social media streamers, Rebel News, who's tied right into the JCCF to control the narrative, right? To put that up against the mainstream media. No wonder they want the mainstream media completely defunded, because that's the opposition. You don't want people, they don't want you paying attention to those guys at all. Do I ever say that here? No, I say listen to everybody. I don't say don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. No, it's the people are saying don't listen to those guys. Those are the ones you really got to question.
Well, and I admire you, Peter Falk, Rickster. You do such a deep investigative cleansing before you even put anything on the air. And I think back now that when I was invited to that barbecue around Pinoca with Marcus Ray, it just drains the blood out of me. I'm sure Marcus Ray is friends with General Vallely in Montana.
I don't know, John, but I will say this. Here's an interesting little tidbit. Marcus Ray, as I understand it, is married to a woman who is part of the Koch family, and it's the Koch brothers who are involved in the oil and gas industry, who have had, certainly ties and influence in Alberta, and they fund the Atlas network, or have, which the JCCF has also been tied to as a partner and was listed as a partner back in 2018 on the Atlas network website, which is sort of a private corporate version of US aid, which pumps money into foreign countries for political reasons under the guise, I would say, of, doing international welfare work. But it's actually
you're not talking the Coca-Cola.
No, not Coca-Cola. I'm talking the Koch brothers. And they're mega rich people that are heavily involved in the energy industry and have had interests in Alberta. Although since then they've sort of sold some of their interests off in Alberta. They're less invested there. Now we have another caller on the line. Who's there?
Well, I guess you're not gonna guess who that is.
Would that be our friend Donald Trump calling from our artificial province of Quebec inside it? Well, I guess Legault is saying that Quebec is a nation, but Canada isn't. What an insult!
I don't know how does that work.
That's a very good question. Dragon. How does that work? I can absolutely assert that Quebec is not its own nation state in that sense, not at all. But you know something, John, you brought something up a while back that ties right into the conversation we've had tonight about Alberta independence, Canada as a 51st state potentially. Who was it that went down to Mar-a-Lago before Danielle Smith?
The Premier of Quebec, Dragon, my friend.
Yes, and isn't that interesting, John? Because why? Because he too has the same interest in speaking to Donald Trump as an independent nation state above and beyond Canada, not going down there to put Canada's interests first at all. No, it's in Legault's case, Quebec, and in Danielle Smith's case, Alberta's interests first.
Well, Rick, Dragon, I got a question for you, Dragon, my friend.
Go ahead.
I've had a tough day in the oil business, my friend. I need a big bear hug from Quebec to me in Alberta. Give me a big bear hug, bro, because I love you, man. I love you. I love you. Give me that big. I need a little love from Montreal, my friend.
I'm gonna hug you with all my legs and all my arms and the wings of a dragon.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are finally getting along.
I love you, man. You know, I'm a little. I get beat up in the chat there a little bit because I'm a little hard on you, my friend. But you know, lots of love back to you, Dragon. I'm so glad you are part of the show. You know, I give a little bit of the boots on the ground from Alberta, and you give us the point of view from Quebec, and that's what makes Canada great country.
Exactly. And you know what, guys, don't hate John or anything like that, because we love each other like two brothers. We are just part of one family, and it's the Maverick family, I think. So we are just proud of being part of this little movement that we are.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. There you go. That's that story in a nutshell. I have still up here all the evidence, everything to document what I said tonight. I have the video clips of the various parties involved with saying things all the way back to 2019, all through the convoy. I have all the clips to back up everything that was said here tonight.
Well, Rick, you've got the charts. You got the charts, right, Rickster? You got the chart.
Oh, the big chart, the spaghetti chart. I'll put it up.
Yeah,
Sure, I'll find that.
Please have that lady back on. That was I could listen to her for 3 hours, Rick. I think she's an awesome patriot. My inner child dragon gives me a really good feeling about the lady Rick had on tonight. I think she's bona fide, on the money, and truthful.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know.